right, guys, good morning to you. We are live. I do invite you to come join me for just a few minutes today. I promise you I'm not going to keep you as long as I did yesterday, which I really don't have any intention of keeping you long anytime I do devotion, but I just got a gift of gab, don't I? But there's just so much about God and Scripture that I love to share that it's just hard for me to stop, with a 2-minute devotion. So anyway, this is the 17th day of April 2020. We made it to another Friday, and it is about 34 minutes after 10 a.m. The sun was shining, the clouds was blown away, and we've seen a blue sky, and then just like that, clouds are rolling in. It looks like it's about ready to rain. But anyway, we're going to worship the Lord for His mercy and goodness and kindness that He shows on us each day. So just come join me. We're going to look at three verses of Scripture, but it's going to be in the book of Haggai, chapter 1, verses 5, 6, and 7. And what I find, I love when the Lord does this stuff, but I was working on a certain devotion, a series actually, that I was hoping to start today, but Lord willing, we'll start it Monday. And we're going to look at the I ams that Jesus talked about. There are 7 I ams that He said throughout the Scripture, and we're going to discuss each one, but Lord willing, we'll start that Monday. But as I was started to work on the devotion, I was in the midst of typing a status about our son DJ. DJ had passed his final test, and he's able to, he'll be graduating through his AIT training. Very excited about it. And I was, posting a picture, and I was typing a status, and I was just ready to hit the send button to post, and it dawned on me that I didn't proofread what I was typing, and I'm bad at typing, especially something long. I'm bad at typing and not rereading it, and then having all kinds of mistakes and all that stuff. And so I've been trying to make myself proofread before I send a message. Well, so as I was typing and about ready to send, it dawned on me that I didn't proofread, so I stopped and reread what I had typed out. And sure enough, I had a lot of mistakes. I accidentally misspelled a word, and I left out a few words, and therefore the sentence didn't even really make any sense. And I was doing all of this because I was excited, and I was going, I just wanted to get the message out there to share with everybody, that we're proud and excited and all this, and as I stopped and reread and correct my mistakes, a thought come to my mind. And there was a term, you guys probably, especially if you do any kind of work, woodworking or anything like that, or even if you're seamstress or whatever you do with measurements, there's an old saying that says measure twice and cut once. And I that thought come to me. In other words, what that's saying, is take your time and know what you're doing, before you make a commitment, right? And, as I was pondering that, quote and thinking about, me typing and ready to send it without proofreading it and making mistakes and stuff. Listen, it's Facebook. We misspell words and we say things, and put it on Facebook. What's the beauty about Facebook is you can go back on your status and you can correct your mistakes and you can fix, what you've said. But let's get a little bit more personal and a little bit more serious. Not always, can we just say, "Oh, I'm sorry." Sorry doesn't fix everything. You may say something out of haste. You may say something out of anger. You may do something out of haste or anger. And after the fact, you may be remorseful. After the fact, you might be sorry. But sometimes you can't undo what you've already done. typing something out and making a mistake and going back and fixing it, okay, there's no problem. But speaking the words, and when you speak to somebody in anger, you speak to somebody in haste, you may go back and apologize, but that's not going to take the pain away. When I was a Sunday school teacher, I took a bunch of paper and kind of just ripped up a little in little pieces, and we would write words down on it. And then we set the paper on the table, and we let each kid go over to the table and take a deep breath and just see how many pieces of paper can be blown off of the table. And, majority of them blew every piece of paper off the table. And then I said, without your hands, just try to take a deep breath and bring all those papers back onto the table. Well, it was impossible. Those kids said, we can't do that. It's impossible. We can't get those papers back by just, inhaling and bringing it back. And I said, exactly. See, we can exhale the words out. We can say and we can speak words, but we can't ever bring them back. We can have actions towards people out of anger and hatred and revenge and all these things, grudges and all. But once we do it, even if you apologize, which is a good thing to apologize, but you can't really undo what's already been done. And so that's why I want to label or title our devotion today, to measure twice and cut once. And like I said, that quote is just saying, think about what you're doing before you do it. Make sure before you're ready to cut, that you made the measurements and stuff, because listen, if you overcut or undercut, it's going to cost you time, it's going to cost you money, it's going to cost you more effort, but if you take your time and consider what you're doing. And that's where our scripture comes from today, in Haggai chapter 1 verses 5, 6, and 7. It says, now therefore thus saith the Lord of hosts, consider your ways. And the word consider just means think carefully. Think carefully about your ways. Verse 6, it says, you have sown much and bring in little. You eat, but ye have not enough. Ye drink, but you are not filled with drink. Ye clothe you, but there is none warm. In other words, they don't keep you warm, the clothes that you're wearing. And he that earneth wages to put into a bag with holes. And then they wrap it up again in verse 7. It says, thus saith the Lord of hosts, consider your ways. Think carefully about what you're doing. I love this verse. And actually I'm kind of ripping a tidbit out of context, because what this scripture was talking about is after the Israelites came out of bondage, they were instructed to continue to work on the temple and to rebuild the temple, and they wasn't doing it. And so therefore you had the prophet Haggai that was telling them, listen, consider your ways. Everything that you're doing, you're not prospering because you're living a disobedient life. But if you start working on the temple like God told you to, blessings will come. But that's for a different devotion. But it still applies today. Listen, consider your ways. Think about what you're doing. Think about what you're saying. Think about what your actions is going to bring. Many a times we don't think about, the consequences of our actions. We don't think about the consequences of our words until after we say it or after we do it. And then it's too little too late. But, not saying that God doesn't forgive us, but there are still consequences. Even after we ask forgiveness and Christ forgives us, if we say or do something to somebody and do it out of haste and we do it, with a mean spirit, even if you come in and apologize for it, for a while, that wound is going to be fresh. So, today, and I got all that just by making a status from DJ, but listen, proofread. In other words, stop and think about what you're doing before you hit that send button. Think about what your actions, what you're going to do or what you're going to say, how it will affect somebody before you say it, before you do it. I know, there's a saying that says it's better to ask forgiveness than to ask for permission, but that don't always apply. But listen, I think that's what a lot of people lives by. Oh, well, God, I won't ask your permission to do something. I'll just ask your forgiveness afterwards. Listen, it's not always better to ask for forgiveness than it is permission. There's a lot of trouble. There's a lot of turmoil. There's a lot of heartaches. There's a lot of spiritual weapons that come with asking forgiveness. But if we take the time and pray and say, Lord, lead me, guide me, is my actions, is my words going to, build somebody up, or is it going to tear somebody down? Measure twice. Think about it. What do you think Haggai in this book, in chapter 5 or verse 5 and 7, it says, now therefore, thus saith the Lord of hosts, consider your ways. And then in verse 7, he said, thus saith the Lord of hosts, consider your ways. In other words, think about what you're doing, then think about it again before you make any actions, before you say anything that you might regret later on. So, folks, listen, today I encourage you, let us use our words, let us use our actions to lift each other up, not to tear each other down. Let's not rip each other apart, because we may not always go back and be able to undo what we've done. So consider your ways, measure twice, and then just cut once. And you'll save yourself a lot of time and effort and expense and all of that. So listen, that's all I got for you today. I told you I'm not going to keep you long. So Lord willing, we'll be back on Monday. Hopefully, if nothing changes, we're going to start a series of Jesus when he was talking about I am. He said it 7 times, and we're going to discover, or we're going to read and look at each one of them, explore each one of them one a day next week, and then into the following week. So until then, listen, guys, have a wonderful Friday and even a better weekend. If nothing's going on, Lord willing, Dusty and I will try to get on, maybe sing a song or two for you all. So until then, guys, be blessed. Love y'all.